Thanks for joining me for this colour matching tutorial. My name is Pete Cooper and I am responsible for retouching and colour reproduction at Ripping Image. A link to the files used in this tutorial can be found in the description below, and you do not have to subscribe to anything to watch the video. Being able to match a product to an exact brand colour is a very useful thing to be able to do. The method I'm going to show you does not require good colour knowledge at all, but it does require a working knowledge of Photoshop. I will now share my screen and guide you through the process.
The colour that you are matching is called the target colour, and for this tutorial it will be a brand colour. You'll find the colour references for a brand in the brand guidelines. Here is the master brand guidelines for Sainsbury's. We're interested in the way the colours are defined, so if I go to the section on colour, you can see that for example, the Sainsbury's orange has been defined in 5 different ways: CMYK, Pantone matching system, RGB, hex, which is what we're most interested in today, and RAL, which is a German colour matching system. If you don't have access to the brand book, then what you can do is go to a search engine and search for brand colours, and the site I use is brandcolours.net. On this website it will display the brand name on the left and the colours associated with that brand on the right. And a really good feature on this website, if I go to a brand, let's say we go to Siemens for example, if I click on the brand colour for Siemens, it will copy the hex code of that colour onto my clipboard, which I can then use in Photoshop, which I'm going to do now. Okay, we're now in Photoshop with the jacket image open. To do this tutorial I need to open the layers window, so I go to window, drag down to layers, and I also need the properties window open, so I click back on window, drag down to properties. I need to set my foreground colour to the target colour. That's the colour that we're trying to achieve, so I click on my foreground colour, and because I clicked on the swatch for the Siemens brand colour, that colour hex code is already on my clipboard. So I'm on a Mac, so I click Command V or Control V for a PC, and it pastes the hex code for that brand colour into this box. So what we're doing here is we're just setting the target colour. You may have been given a target colour specified in RGB, and you just type the RGB values that you've been given into there, or you may just click a colour or just visually select a colour that you want to match. This is where you do it. I've pasted that hex code into this box and I'm going to click OK. So now my foreground colour is set to our target colour. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer by clicking here and dragging across to new layer and call this target colour. I'm just going to draw a box and I'm going to fill it with that colour. So I go to the rectangular marquee tool, I click and drag, then I go to edit, fill, and I'm filling with the foreground colour like so, and I just want to deselect it, so I click on select, drag down to deselect. Okay, so I now have a target colour. Now our subject colour is this red jacket, because we're going to make this red jacket the brand colour for Siemens. So the subject colour is this red, so I'm going to click on the background layer and we need to sample that red. So I'm going to click on the eyedropper tool and we need to select a sample size for the eyedropper tool. Now if this was set to point sample and I clicked on the jacket, it would select the individual pixel of where I've clicked, and we can see that this jacket has light and dark shades, so there's many shades of that red. So what we need to do is average that out. So we click on the point sample and we drag down to 31 by 31 average, and then we click on the jacket, but not in a shadow or a highlight, but somewhere where we think the pure colour is, and probably something like that. So now we can see our foreground colour is the colour of the jacket. Now I want to draw a box just like this box with the subject colour. So I go to the top of the layers, which is the target colour, and then I click here and drag across to new layer, and this is called subject colour. Okay, like that. And as before, I click the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to draw this box overlapping the target colour box. I then, as before, go to Edit, Fill, and I'm filling with the foreground colour, like so, and then deselect by clicking on Select, Deselect. I can now switch off the visibility of the background layer. I now have a subject colour and a target colour, and I need the subject colour to be this colour. So I now need to make my foreground colour the same colour as the target colour. I do that by clicking on the target colour, picking the eyedropper tool again and clicking on that colour, and it's now set my foreground colour back to the brand colour for Siemens. I could have just clicked on the foreground colour and pasted it in again. Same thing. I now need to make a solid colour layer above the subject colour layer. So I do that by clicking on the very top layer, then clicking here, dragging down to solid colour and clicking OK. So that now has filled that layer with our target colour. The next thing we need to do is change its blending mode. This is very important. So go from normal to colour, and then we click here and we make a clipping mask. Okay, like so. The next thing we need to do is we need to make a black and white adjustment layer. We do that by clicking here, dragging down to black and white. And I mentioned on the video post for this tutorial that you could match, using this method, you could match a brand colour on a black and white monitor. And this is why. It's because all we have to do now is match these two shades. At the moment they are different. So the way we do that is we click on the subject colour layer and then click here to make a levels adjustment layer. And then we need to click either this handle or this handle, and this is the area that we're adjusting. Now if I click this side and I move it, and you can only move them this way and this one this way. So if I move it and see what happens, it's getting darker, it will never match. So I need to move this side. So if I move this side, you can see that the shades it is achievable to match those two boxes. So there will be a point about there where you can't really see the join between the boxes. Now if I then switch off the visibility of the black and white layer, you can see now we've matched our subject colour now matches our target colour. So our work is almost done. So the next thing we need to do is delete all the layers that we no longer need, and that's the black and white layer, and I click on it. Now by default it seems to click on the layer mask, because you can see that it's highlighted, and that's the actual layer, because now you can see that's highlighted. So if it does that, you need just to make sure you click here, and then you can click on the bin to delete it and just approve that. You don't need the subject colour layer anymore, so we can delete that. We don't need the target colour layer anymore, so I can delete that. The next thing we need to do is we need to group these two layers. So I click on the colour fill layer and I press the shift key and click on the levels layer. So I then click here and I drag down to new group from layers, and I call this colour fix. Okay, I can now switch off the visibility of that layer. So we now have a colour fix stack of layers that will perform the colour correction. We now need to apply it just to the jacket. So I click on the background layer, make sure it's visible, and we need to select the jacket now. Now the very best way to do that would be with the pen tool, but that isn't really in the scope of this tutorial. Okay, this is about adjusting the colour rather than selecting things. So I'm going to use the quickest method, which is using the quick selection tool. And for the purposes of this tutorial, it will do a good enough job. So I'm just going to click there and just quickly drag down to the bottom of the jacket there. So I'm okay with that selection. I'm now going to click the colour fix group of layers, and I just click here to add a layer mask. When I switch the visibility of that group on, you can see now that our subject colour, the red, is now the brand colour for Siemens. but I'm not quite happy with the shadow detail. I think it looks a bit washed out. So, and that happens when you go to a lighter colour, which is why I picked this colour. So what we do now is we open this stack by clicking here, and we go to the levels adjustment layer. Then we click here and we drag down to blending options.
And when you're in blending options, we're interested in the underlying layer, which is at the bottom. And you click on the handle bottom left and you move it very slowly to the right. And as you do that, the very, very darkest areas will start to gain detail. So you're clicking the bottom left handle, moving it to the right. And as I do that, I can see now shadow detail appearing. And once you get the darkest shadows appearing, you then stop.
Okay, once you see the shadows appearing, you then on a Mac click Option or Alt on a PC, and you click this handle, and that splits it in two. You then click on the right hand side and drag it to the right. And what this will do is it will restore the shadow detail. And you can see if you went too far that it would just go really dark. So something like that would do. And that's to your choice, really. Okay, then we click OK, and we can close this group of layers. And now you can see you've got a before and afterwards. Okay, so that's an example where we've just used a quick selection on the jacket. I'd like to go through another example quite quickly where the object, this is opening the other tutorial image of the VW Beetle, and what we're going to do now is I'm going to go through it again, but we're going to change the colour of this car to a different target colour. So I'm going to make the target colour, so I click on the foreground colour, and imagine your client has said I want that car to be magenta. So I then click on our CMYK values, and so I want 0 cyan, and then I want 100 magenta, select the yellow, 0, I don't want any black, 0 black. So now it's just pure magenta. Okay, that's our target colour. So I'm going to go through this quite quickly till we get to a new part for this tutorial. So I go new layer, target, this for target colour. I draw a box and I fill it with the target colour, which is the foreground colour, and deselect. I then create a new layer that's called subject, and this is the subject colour, and that is the colour of the car. So I need to be on the layer with the car. I select the eyedropper tool and I'm going to increase the average to 51 by 51 because there's so many shades on this, and I'm going to click somewhere like this. So now the foreground colour is the colour of the car. So I go to my subject layer and, as before, draw a box that overlaps the target colour, and I fill it with the foreground colour like so. I can then switch off the visibility of the background layer. So I now just deselect by going select, deselect. I now need to make a solid colour layer of my target colour, and I do that by making the foreground colour the target colour, and I do that by clicking on the eyedropper tool, clicking on the target layer, clicking on that part of it where there is some colour, and then I go to the top of the layers and I go click here and I drag down to solid colour, and that just makes, just as before, it makes a solid colour, full out solid colour of the target colour. And this is the important bit, so we go to the blending mode, change it from normal to colour. We click here and we create a clipping mask. And the next thing we do is we make a black and white adjustment layer. So all we need to do now is make these two boxes look the same, and we've matched the colour. So I click back on my subject layer, click on my adjustment layers here, and I drag down to levels. And as before, I need to move one of these. So I'm going to just try this one. It's not the right one to move, so I'll move this one. We need to move this until we can't see a join. something like that. Okay, so now I can't really see a join, and we can test that by just turning the visibility of the black and white adjustment layer off, and they match pretty well. So now I need to just delete the layers that I no longer need, and I do that by clicking on the layer, not the layer mask, clicking delete, clicking on the subject layer, we can get rid of that, and we can delete that as well. So as before, we've got a color fill layer that we shift click to the levels layer, and we click here and we go to new group from layers, and it's called color fix. Call it color fix. Okay, the next thing we need to do is switch the visibility off, go to the background layer, and we need to select the car. Now, the quickest way to select something when it's such a dominant color like that is to go to select, and we go to color range, and the default for that usually is sample colors, so it'll look something like that. And if you just drag it to reds, because it's a red car, and click OK, it's done its best job at selecting the car. The next thing we do is we just click on the color fix group of layers, and then just as before we click here, add layer mask, and when we switch the visibility of this layer on, you can see that we've turned this red car into a magenta car. But in the process of doing that, we've also adjusted all the reds in this background. So what we need to do is we need to edit the mask, and the way we do that is to go to the mask. On a Mac you press Option, which is Alt on a PC, and you click on the mask which is there, and then all you have to do is just paint over the areas that you don't want this to affect. So anywhere black will conceal the effect, and anywhere white will reveal it. That's why the white areas are the areas that the color fix layers will affect. So there's lots of ways of doing that. I'm going to do this the quickest way for today, but you could paint over them, you could use the burn tool. There's lots of ways of doing this, but I'm just going to do this a really quick way now, because I'm going to just draw around it like so, and then go to select, and then inverse, and then while my foreground color is set to black, I just go edit fill, and I fill it with the foreground color, and it will just make that all go black. And then I go to select, deselect, and then I switch the visibility of the layers back on, and now it's only really affecting the car. I can't really see any other reds outside of the car that are being affected. So we have achieved what we wanted to achieve by making the subject color the target color.
That concludes this tutorial, which I really hope you found useful. Feel free to leave comments, and please do not hesitate to get in touch should you need any further information. Thank you.